I'm Irene von der Sonde. I'm proud to be the executive director and founder of Kidpower Teen Power Full Power International. And I want to again thank Bea and Marta from Eurordis and RareConnect for helping us to get words out about this webinar to people, and also for inspiring the webinar because of a story that we shared in the invitation about a mother who was being bullied because of her appearance, because she looked different, and about her concerns for her son who has the same rare illness that can cause him to look different. And we really are committed to helping people all over the world to do what we call people safety, people being safe with people, preventing and solving problems with people. So again, this is our institute, by the way, our Skills for Child Protection Advocates Institute. We work with people of all ages, abilities, cultures, beliefs, genders, identities, all over the world. And we actually have people who are using Kidpower in every continent, I say, except I think Antarctica. We offer workshops, we offer in-person resources, educational resources like this one, and we partner with organizations in order to adapt our curriculum to meet their needs. Because the skills that you need to be safe with people are the same throughout our lives. What changes are some of the environments we find ourselves in and some of our abilities. So our vision is to work together to create cultures of caring, respect, and kindness for everyone, everywhere. And this picture is some people having fun, practicing in a class, in fact, being joyful, practicing setting boundaries and speaking up for themselves. We like to say that instead of using fear to teach about bullying and violence and abuse, we make it fun to learn how to be safe, to learn the skills and strategies we need to be safe. The foundation of safety is that everyone understands that we accept this message for ourselves and that we communicate this to the people around us, the young people in our lives, as well as other people for whom we have responsibility. For each of us, we have the right to be treated with safety and respect, and the responsibility to act safely and respectfully towards ourselves and others. The problem is that lots of things get in the way of that vision and that belief, that core belief. And so having skills and tools to recognize and address some of the things that get in the way, the uncomfortable feelings or difficult behavior that can cause us to not be treated with safety and respect or to have trouble doing it ourselves. Part of what we want to do, you know, we teach a section. It's so interesting, you know, when we work with young children, most of them, if we say, do you wish you looked different? They'll look at us like we're nuts. They'll look at themselves in the mirror with joy and they'll say, why, that's me. Look, I have a spot on my nose. My tummy's big. My face looks a little different. That's okay, because they haven't had to deal with the prejudice that comes because of their appearance, if it's different in some way or if it falls short, at least in people's minds in some way. What is so interesting, and we tell people, is that in nature, it's not the rocks or the trees or the mountains that look the most the same that we think are the most beautiful, but things that look the most different, that are shaped by time and even by trauma. And, and we need to give ourselves this vision of beauty for ourselves and our others as people, that is differences are beautiful. They don't have to be seen as negative or as certainly not as reasons to treat people with less safety or less respect. The sad thing is that even for kids that don't have problems, by the time the same kids get to age 10, if we say, do any of you think you wish you looked different? Most of them will raise their hands. Isn't that sad? And who do you think they're learning this from? Yeah, they're learning it from us and from our society. So we need to set a good example and be proud of who we are, no matter how we look, and encourage our kids and all people to do the same. What we say is that our belief in ourselves as being powerful, competent, valuable people is the most important safety skill we have. Of course, it's good for other things too, not just not just for safety, but also for, but when we use a broad definition of safety and well-being would be kind of the broader definition. It helps us to, if we believe in ourselves, we can be more successful at what we want to do. We can have happier and more joyful and relationships. We teach heart power. If you want to just join me in just putting your hands on your heart, like is in the drawing here. These are our safety signals, by the way. They're in our website library. You can download them and share them and use them. But these are simple drawings, gestures, and words to describe important beliefs. So heart power. Heart power helps us to believe in ourselves, to take good things into our hearts, and to protect ourselves from bad things that people might put in our hearts, and to use our hearts to connect with others. So when we're connecting with others, we're less likely to be bullying them. If we protect our heart, we're less likely to be miserable. And if we take good things into our hearts, that's like taking in good food. Or taking in nourishment, because when we take kindness into our hearts, then we are better able to grow, and we are better able to feel good about ourselves, and we all deserve that. One of the things that gets in the way are what we call triggers. Emotional triggers are thoughts, words, or gestures that cause us to explode with feelings. And when we're exploding with upset or unhappy feelings, it's hard to make wise choices. It's hard to it's hard to protect ourselves, and we're more likely. And we sometimes trigger ourselves. We say mean things to ourselves, and sometimes the things that other people say or do can be triggering to us. So we have different kinds of triggers. The first one here are what we call your worthless attacks. And they're like volcanoes. People attack us for our character, our relationships. They might use hate language about how we look. They might attack us for our appearance. While people who, and we can be triggered ourselves. I need to acknowledge this, because part of helping overcome prejudice is acknowledging that we can be triggered by somebody else, and for something that is not their fault. A lot of people get triggered by me because I remind them of their mothers, and maybe they didn't have the best relationship with their mothers, and maybe now it'll be their grandmothers too. But my voice, I can't help my voice. I can't help that I have gestures like these, or maybe I could, but then I wouldn't be me anymore. And yet people can be triggered by that and say, you remind me of my mother. And so, and they get upset. I have been triggered by people's appearance. I want to tell you a story that I'm very ashamed of, but I think it's important in understanding how to transform prejudice. I was teaching a class, it was a safety class for women at our community center, and I walked past a woman and her face did look different. And it was because of a rare disease. And my first gut reaction was like a child who had been seeing things that looked, been brought up on pictures of monsters. And to my great shame, my first thought was, oh, I hope she's not in my class. But you know what? The miracle was she was in my class. In fact, that day she was the only person in my class, and it was just me and her. And the more I heard her story and talked to her, she said, oh, you're not going to not do the class if it's just me. I really need this. And I could imagine she did, because she had faced such horrific bullying. And we stayed. And the more we talked, the more I could see the beauty in her face. She didn't look like my childhood image of a monster anymore. She looked like a beautiful, amazing Picasso painting. And we practiced what to do when people came up and said and did mean things to her. And in healing, that this helped heal her, but you know what? It also helped me to heal, because I have also been attacked for how I looked. And yet we had this shared experience, and yet my own prejudices, what I needed was to have time to be with her as a person and to use the skills I had and share them with her, and to learn from her remarkable courage in coming to a class like she did. So one of the ways to take power out of our own triggers or help other people to do it is through getting to know somebody and helping them to know you as a person. So your worthless attacks use insults, and we can direct it to ourselves or others. Was had a class with a young man who was developmentally disabled, and we have a technique we practice of throwing hurtful words in a trash can, and we asked him what he wanted to throw away, and he said, I could want to throw away that I wish I was different. And you know what? All of us got a little teary. But I had him practice with a real trash can, throwing away the words, I wish I was different, and putting in his heart, I am proud of who I am. Taking away his own you're worthless messages and having an answer when other people said that to him. And we heard from the people that worked with him that it really, really helped. He had come over to us, bent over like this, and he walked away with his head tall. Another kind of attack is you're helpless, where somebody uses threats and fear, says they're going to harm you or someone you love, or harm your reputation, or make it so you can't work. Another kind of attack uses emotional coercion. And people who have been bullied or who feel alone or isolated are especially vulnerable to emotional coercion. That means people use your caring against you. People are, so somebody might say, oh, don't tell on me, just because I skipped class, lie and say I was with you. Or they might say, look, don't you care about me? Even if, if you loved me, you'd let me do whatever I wanted. And of course, that's not safe. So having somebody use your caring against you, and having you maybe using the isolation you might feel, feeling lonely against you. Don't you want to hang out with me? Even if we're going to do something that might be in your really not best interest, is a form of verbal and emotional attack. So we have 8 emotional safety techniques to practice how to keep ourselves safe. And these are, by the way, we are recording this webinar. Are we having any questions coming in, by the way, or not yet? Sometimes I start talking and people just say, I don't have questions, and we get a lot later. You can also email us later at safety@kidpower.org. And if you don't want to use the chat function here, and we will answer your questions. Okay, so skill number 1, if you want to join me in doing this, that'd be great, because I'm a little lonely out here. Okay, squeeze your palms together and straighten your back. Take a breath and let it out again. And if you squeeze your toes or your back against the chair, the idea with calm down power is that when we ground ourselves, and you could be pushing your hands down against your legs instead of squeezing your palms together, but it's getting connection with your hands, with your feet, or with your legs or your back, and connection with your breath helps you to calm down. And it's a very quick way to practice. Again, this is a safety signal, and with directions, it is on our website library under resources. Okay, trash can. We have lots of trash cans. I told you a story about the real trash can. And here, these are, by the way, full power characters that we have. We have also got Kidpower characters, but they're helping us teach. So Milin is throwing in a real trash can away the word shut up. Now, we want to not just throw away hurting words, but we want to give ourselves some positive self-talk to help. If you can imagine, if somebody was throwing real trash at us and we let it land in our face and maybe our eyes or our mouth, that wouldn't be safe. We'd want to catch it and we want to throw it away, and then we want to wash our hands. So catching, throwing hurtful words or behavior, and then the affirmation of the positive self-talk is like washing your hands to be safe. So Rosa is using a mini trash can, just a little hole with your thumb, and you can do that one behind your back or your head. And she's throwing away the word stupid. And her affirmation is, I'm smart. And even if you're not smart in the tech, on an IQ level, I work with a lot of people, and I have to say, there's all kinds of smart. And there's wise, there's emotionally present smart, there's many kinds of smart. We all have our own ways of being smart. Now, Mike is using the Kidpower Trash Can, which this little teeny video I'm in can't show you, but he's showing you, to put a hand on your hip, get your mean word catcher, throw it in the hole that your arm makes, and then put your hands on your heart and say, I look great. Take in the good words and throw away the hurtful words or the hurtful messages. And then Rosa, who's, who carries some extra weight, is throwing away in her imagination trash can the word fat. And she's saying, I am beautiful. So another skill, when sometimes somebody is acting like they're disgusted with you, or they're acting afraid of you, or they're acting, or they're just combining something important that you need to know with an insult. So somebody might be saying, you ugly person, you cut in front of me, and maybe you did cut in front of them in your car or in line. And so the useful information is, oops, I cut in front of somebody. The insult is, you ugly person. And so we want to imagine a screen. You can help yourself do this like this. You wouldn't do this in front of somebody, but it helps if you use your fingers as a screen, because we find that if you do something with your body, it helps you to remember later to use it with your mind. So your screen is to filter out, just like Windows, the screens on Windows, let in fresh air and filter out the bugs. And that's what we want to do with this as well, is take in useful information and keep out the bugs. And I just have to check the time because I don't know how fast I'm going. Okay, so again, another useful technique. If those of you who are more medical, it might be the semi-permeable membrane that every cell in our body has. And it lets in oxygen and nutrients, and it pushes out waste, and it keeps out toxins. And if we didn't have a semi-permeable membrane, the cell would die. And if we didn't have enough of them, we would die. So we can imagine something like that protecting us and letting in useful information while keeping out hurtful messages. We want to transform hurtful messages by taking the power out of emotional triggers. Sometimes people will let curse or swear words upset them so much that they will, they get so upset by something somebody says or does that they're miserable. It just causes them endless suffering. Or sometimes they react, somebody says, I hate you, and you say, I hate you more. And suddenly you have an argument and a confrontation. It makes everybody miserable, wastes a lot of time too. So we want to, if somebody says, I hate you, you could use the screen technique if it was a friend. Back to the screen. Oh, I can do that. Can I do that? Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, so that you can say, oh, how interesting. My friend is upset today. and screen out the words, I hate you. And then you can address the problem instead of being emotionally upset. The same thing is if there are certain words, messages you give yourself, in this case, the full power friends are throwing, this is, we call it the mean words recycling machine, because they're throwing in negative self-talk, negative messages, and turning them into positive self-talk. I hate myself, I love myself. I'm too short, I'm just the right size, or good things come in small packages, we like to say, or whatever it might be. I'm different. Well, I'm proud of my differences, or I'm proud to be me, even if I wish I looked different. Sometimes that's true. So that you also, so when we teach people, we practice with verbal attack, we call it, because people get so triggered by this. And in real life assaults, sometimes people are more upset by the things somebody said to them than by what was done to them. So we taking the power out often by getting combining a negative with a positive. So one of the practices we have, and we have this also again written up, we have an article, we'll be sending you links to our website after this webinar, but an article on 8 emotional safety techniques. But we can take a word like freak or a swear word or curse word and combine it with something that we like, a favorite food. So it might be freak. And when we ask teens what their favorite food is, it's usually pizza, but it could be chocolate. But okay, so freak and pizza, freak, chocolate, freak, pizza. If you say that a while, it takes the power out of whatever the trigger word was for you. I once had a little boy in a workshop who's 6 years old, and he was being constantly teased for crying by his big brothers. And the trash can to throw it didn't work. So we wrote the word crybaby down on a piece of paper, and we all talked about that tears help you to get rid of stress chemicals and are ways of being safe, and that everybody cries, or most people cry, even grown-ups. And then we had each child in the class tear the paper that the word crybaby was written on, and until finally we could put it all into the trash, all crumpled up. So doing something with a word that you can't stand to have somebody say without it just being a dagger in your heart, or without you feeling like you've got to get back at them, that's the time to work on whether you say it to yourself or somebody else says it to you, or it might be a gesture, that whatever it is, find a way to transform it. I was once teaching a class, and we make interpretations all the time. And the person teaching with me is a Kidpower class, and the person teaching with me was very worried about somebody who was kind of famous, who was watching, and his face was really looking upset. She said she hates what we're doing. So I took this woman aside and I said, so what do you think? And she said, I'm trying so hard not to cry in front of these children because I'm so moved by seeing how powerful they are. So sometimes our triggers, we make up stories for ourselves that aren't even true. But if they are true, it's still helpful to take the emotional load out of the trigger, out of the words or the gestures or the facial expressions, so that we can be calm and make the best choices for ourselves and for others. Okay, why is this not working now? Did you take over?
I didn't.
Oops, okay. Well, that worked. Okay. What, I don't know what you did,
I
but
just clicked rather than the keyboard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, isn't it great to have support and help in this world? We all need that. All right, so another technique, and this was by some children who's their parents were divorced, and they needed to go to the home of the father, who was often saying very bullying things to them, very mean things. And it wasn't an option for him to just leave. Because it was his father and he was living there, and for the girl as well. And so we did we came up with the emotional raincoat, where we got actual raincoats in a class and then had people go blah, 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 and imagine awful, mean things. And then the person in the yellow raincoat is saying things like, I'm sad you feel that way. We can agree to disagree. I care about you. Some de-escalating things while wearing this raincoat and we don't, you don't have, you can imagine the raincoat. We just like having it for the picture because imagination raincoats just don't look so well on a PowerPoint. And then the other person is just blah, blah, blah. You always blah, blah, blah. I hate you. Things like that. And it's very hard to keep going. I will tell you that. Meanwhile, though, the person who's being targeted is able to stay calm and centered and de-escalate. And this is a situation where you don't have the choice to leave. Another technique is what we call the that's not true technique. It's where you take something that is true and connect it to something that's not true. This happens when we, for example, I have curly hair. Now, if I were to say, I'll use the mini trash can so you can see it. I could say my hair's not curly, it's straight, and throw away the words curly hair. That would be silly. When I was growing up, everybody that was fashionable had smooth, flowing, beautiful hair. My hair looked like this, which at that time I hated. And hating my curly hair was not good for my self-esteem, thinking I was ugly. So if you say, the message is, if you're saying to yourself or somebody else saying you're ugly because you have curly hair, then you can set a boundary and say that's not true. If somebody says, now when we practice this with somebody, we can practice this with ourselves, but we want to remember we are pretending so we can practice. And that's what Lynn is saying to Rosa. And Rosa's saying, okay, so we're agreeing on a practice. And then Lynn is pretending to be angry and mean, and she's saying, you're ugly because you're fat. And Rosa's saying, you're ugly because you're fat. And Rosa's saying, that's not true. The power of that's not true. You're awful because you look different than other people. That's not true. You're ugly because you don't look like a fashion magazine. That's not true. And so if you are, so being able to say it aloud and make this, your wall or your fence, a wall is up higher, a fence is a little lower, I got it up high so you can see it, is a very effective way of transforming something, a negative message you say to yourself or other people say to you, having it said aloud, and then setting a boundary about it with yourself. You can also be saying it to somebody else. You can decide if it's safe. You can say, that's not true. You're a bad friend because you don't do what I want. See, you might be not doing what somebody wants. That's the true part. But a bad friend, that's not true. So you can, there are many, many messages with the that's not true technique that can help increase your emotional safety. Another thing we do is to move away from trouble. I see 3 things in question and answer.
Yeah. Do you want to take a second to?
Yeah, let me just see.
So,
yes, the slides will be available and study with the class.
Well, answer, you'll see the first question. That is the first part of this.
Oh. Answer. Oh, okay.
So this was.
Oh, good. You're taking care of these, Marilyn. Thank you so much. Okay. I will let Marilyn keep going with that. If there's something else that, I think she's got them all. If there's something that needs help with being answered, you just yeah, Marilyn will let us know. Okay, let me go back. How do I go back? Okay.
I think one more.
One more. Yes, that's where. Okay, so another skill is for adjusting your emotional distance. And sometimes I'm somebody that loves connection. I love connection. I love healthy connection, though. There are some kinds of connection that aren't so healthy. And sometimes people who are really important to you can be wonderful and kind, and sometimes they're not so wonderful and kind. And knowing how to adjust your emotional distance and sometimes your physical distance, and being prepared to do that can make a difference. So in this drawing, we've got Rosa and her girlfriend are upset, and some people are mocking them and making fun, saying mean things to them. I hate the word making fun, but we all use it because it's not fun, is it, when people are mean? And instead of engaging with them, they're just saying, have a nice day. They're not answering them. They're adjusting their emotional distance. A way we can practice this is we sometimes have people starting as friends, very close together, two little friends. And then maybe one friend is saying something like, you never call me. And the person backs up and says, well, I've been really busy. Well, I think you don't care about me. Well, I care about you a lot, but I think I've just been busy. And as the person gets more and more unkind, the other person eventually just leaves. So being able to move away, we can make a difference. We can move away in our imaginations, even if we can't move away with our bodies. But so often we can move away with our bodies as well. Being able to leave with kindness. Now, we do workshops with people who are in all kinds of life situations. And in one workshop, I was with some teenage girls who were choosing to stay in unsafe relationships. So having them, a typical scenario was that their boyfriend said, I want to have sex with you. And she said, I don't know, I'm tired. And he said, you're cheating on me. And these girls would come right up to the person who was being aggressive and would sometimes hit them rather than moving away. But just walking away doesn't work. So we had them practice saying, I'd never cheat on you. I love you a lot. I'll talk to you when we're less tired, when we're feeling better, and moving away. It's in daily relationships too. I can't think of how many arguments I could have avoided having with my husband if we had just been able to leave with kindness. And usually by the next day we'd forgotten what we were arguing about, but we get caught up in how we were communicating to each other and get more and more upset and waste hours that way. So being able to disengage, even in non-bullying situation, but in daily relationships. And if somebody says, in this story, Taylor had said he hated his friends because he got up on the wrong side of the bed. And Rose is saying, and she's taking her friends away, I'm sad you said you hate us because we like you a lot and we'll talk to you later. And even though Taylor is upset, those words, even if the person says, that's, if you like me, you'd just do anything I wanted, or you'd be different. Even though by saying that, in many cases, not all the time, which is why we have lots of different safety techniques, he was able to protect, they're able to not only protect themselves, but also able to help improve the relationship with Taylor.
If we can take a second for a question.
Yes, sure.
Why
don't you just tell me the question? Just repeat the question.
Sure. So the question is, can you help with words for a transgender teen to defend herself? This is a situation out in the world as well as online. She has had some trouble with other teens and is afraid to admit being transgender for fear of rejection. Okay,
so I'm going to say we have a whole article, by the way, on protecting our transgender youth. And I will send that out to all of you because there's many issues related to this. You have to choose, when you are somebody who is targeted for prejudice, you have to choose when to be out and how to be out, and to get into places where you've got support. So that's the first thing. If you're going to, you write down all the insults somebody might say, and you practice out loud, somebody saying something, and you just practice out loud what to say to change the inside message. And it might be, yes, I'm transgender, and somebody says, that's awful, or, I don't want anything to do with you, or really, you're just making that up. I mean, people say all kinds of awful things. And you can weather the storm. You put on your emotional raincoat. You have good answers, and you rehearse those answers ahead of time. A wonderful book is called The Power of Moments, and it's by Chip and Dan Heath. And in there, they talk about how they practicing courage, how they prepared people who, the young people, this is when we were integrating lunchrooms long ago in the Deep South, and how they managed to, they prepared young people to go and sit at lunch counters that were segregated and not be violent, even though they were dealt with violence and prejudice, by practicing dealing with all the ugly things somebody might say and still feeling good about themselves, still not escalating, weathering the storm, in other words, which sometimes you have to do in order to work towards change. But you want to be wise about how you do it, and you want to do it with support. And they didn't do it until they had really prepared. I have sometimes helped people practice, even on Skype, how to come out to members of their family, and writing down all the things they were afraid their family members might say or do. As in, maybe the mother, this was the one, was my mother might drop dead of a heart attack. And I said, well, in that case, you'll be sad. And another was my mother, I said, if your mother has a heart attack, you'll call 911. And, making a safety plan about different things and about how you're going to get help and support. You can also set boundaries, and setting boundaries to advocate for somebody else. So in this picture, they're making fun of the girl with the scarf, and by saying, you're weird. And she and her friends are saying, stop, that's not safe. Stop, that's an unkind thing to say. Being able to advocate for people and for yourself with simple messages ahead of time helps you to be able to do it in the moment, and it can make a big difference. We like to use a boundary setting recipe that starts with a bridge. I know people talk a lot about iMessages, but I think if you can start with a connection, we have found that it works a lot better when you can start with a connection to the other person. And so it might be to say, I understand that this is uncomfortable for you, or I understand that this is not what you were expecting, or I understand that this is hard for you, or I understand that you're really busy. And then you get your iMessage, and I feel sad when you call me a freak, or it hurts my feelings when you say that you don't believe me. Please respect who I am. This is my truth. Please respect who I am. So you can make your own boundary setting communication recipe, and we often do this, and we take situations where people are really worried, and they write down who the other person is. They write down the connecting bridge, and I know we have this. We'll send you a link for this also. It's on our website, how to do this. And it's a positive boundary setting practice. And you fill in your own words and your own behaviors. And rejection, fear of rejection. I want to go back to anyone who's facing prejudice, whether it's because you're transgender, or you look different in some way, or you have, or you're getting old, or you're too young, or whatever it might be, whatever, or you're a person of color, whatever the prejudice might be, being able to set boundaries and speak up about put downs and deal with people's negative reactions. I bet if I had the hand raising function here, I'd be saying, how many of you don't like other people telling you what to do, or that you did something wrong? And I bet most of us would raise their hands. Me too. I've learned to appreciate feedback, but there's still a little part of me that goes, oh, ouch. Often the ouch is, oh, I should have known that, or I shouldn't have done that. But the other ouch is, ooh, I hate being told what to do. So we have many negative reactions that we teach people to persevere, to keep going, even in the face of negative reactions. And then we have a number of positive responses. So I'm giving you we have probably more than a college major's worth of curriculum, but we're giving you some of the highlights here. And then hopefully this will lead you to learn more. We want to use our advocacy skills. So and there's an article called Assertive Advocacy, because it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. And advocacy could be walls, like the first picture. A wall is for protecting yourself when somebody is really trying to harm you. A fence, which is a lower wall, is for setting a boundary of some kind when somebody is crossing your boundaries, not intentionally harming you or being or you're not in danger, but you're still uncomfortable. Your boundaries are being crossed. And a bridge is when you want to reach out to somebody. So palms are up in that last picture. I think the palms are there. You want to ask something of somebody. You want to ask them for help. You might be wanting to ask to join them, or to do something together. And whether you're using a wall, a fence, or a bridge, how you speak, your body language, your attitude is going to make all the difference. And sometimes when people say, well, I tried all this, but it didn't work. And I say, when we say, in classrooms, we sometimes have kids all go, teacher. And I say, what is that called? And they say whining. And I say, is it annoying? And they all go, yes. And I say, even to yourself? And they go, yes. So recognizing that that's why practice helps, because it's normal to close down and get passive and act like you don't believe in yourself, or you don't have the right, or you have to act really helpless in order to get somebody's attention. It's also normal to get really aggressive. You get sick and tired of doing this, or maybe you're just, you don't want to, and you say, cut it out, or don't talk to me like this, or you've got to help me, in an angry way, or I want to play. And it makes people less likely to want to be with you, because you're acting, you're demanding rather than connecting. And then we say that wall. So if you're a wall and you're toppling backwards, that's not safe. If you're toppling forward, that's not safe. You want to be upright, and you want to sound like you believe in yourself and you believe in the other person, that they will listen, even if you have to persevere for a while because they don't listen right away. And if it doesn't work, nothing works all the time, then you find somebody else to support you, or to be with you, or to join with you. Or you get help if it's behavior you've got to stop and it's really unsafe. You leave and you get help. Practicing helps you. And you might, and you realize that sometimes you have to say, stop, that's not safe. Sometimes you have to say, please stop, that's not okay with me. And sometimes you have to say, I need help. And all of the way you do it will make a difference with all of these goals. It takes courage to be a leader for safety and respect for yourself and others. Here, people are making unkind, cruel remarks. And Mylyn is prepared. She feels it's safe there. Sometimes it's not safe. And then you might reach out to the person instead of speaking up in the moment, or you might go and get help from somebody else. Sometimes people are attacked when they're out in public, and sometimes the answer is to speak up and to say, this is who I am. Sometimes when people make attacking remarks, it's actually a question, especially if a young child does it. And like if somebody says, what's wrong with you? You're in a wheelchair, or you look different. Then being able to say, no, one person, one of our instructors has an illness where part of her face is paralyzed. And so she just leads with that when she teaches a class. And she says, it's going to look like because part of my face doesn't move. And it's going to look sometimes like I'm frowning when I'm really smiling because of that, or like I'm making a funny face. And that was it for the rest of the class. That's all they needed. So sometimes explaining something is a way to help be a leader for safety and respect. And it helps to reduce that prejudice because people become comfortable with seeing people who are different. Again, reaching out when somebody has had a problem. I think sometimes in in real life, we don't know the words to say. We're witnesses, and we want to go from being witnesses to being advocates, to really speaking up when, oh goodness, time is flying, that's okay. We want to be, anyway, to really speaking up when somebody is harmful, and reaching out to the person who might reject you at first, because they probably have had, have a lot of upset feelings and might not trust anybody. But saying, I'm sorry that happened, even if they reject you at first, it can make a difference later. We want to create environments where people are welcome. And that could be by teaching everybody the skills of inclusion, of inviting somebody to join you at the table instead of sitting alone. It can be sometimes in some schools where a child who's different or has some special need, the school creates a circle of friends where kids you get to be cool because you're friends with this person. Or it could be safety buddies that sometimes go across classrooms or across ages. Or if it's a complicated situation, it might just be that somebody's a partner for a day, and everybody gets to learn about somebody who's different or is having a hard time or is struggling in some way, and they get to know each other as people. So it helps everyone to grow. I once did a workshop for physical therapists who were working with young people who had visual, they were hard of seeing or blind. And kids get made fun of or teased because of their cane, or because, and so what they did was a whole education in the classroom where everybody got to use the cane and be blindfolded and learn something, maybe something more important than anything that could have been taught that day, about what this person's world was like. And to take the mystery out of it, or the discomfort out of it, can make, really does make a difference. Okay, our job with the young people in our lives is to protect them as best we can, to intervene and stop unsafe situations, and to speak up to create a safer world with them. We want to use our attention. We say, water what you want to see grow. So when we catch people being kind and thoughtful, that's the time to say something. Not just when we want them to do something different. When we can say in the moment, one of the things we say is, imagine that it's the last, it's the last day before vacation. We have educators do this, and you're about to leave the school, and you see some kids picking on another kid. And the parents are standing right there. What is it you feel like doing? Well, a lot of times people will say, I just want to walk by. I just want to go. I'm done. My parents are right there. And which is a normal feeling, but we point out that when you walk by and you're a leader in an environment, or any adult could take leadership. Some parents often after Kidpower, they do. They'll come in and step in, even if it's not their own kids. That if you walk by, then what you're giving a lie to the messages about safety and respect and no bullying in our school or in our organization or in our community. So what we need to do is to practice ourselves how to speak up and say, excuse me, that didn't look safe, or that sounded unkind. Let's find another way to say that and help kids practice what to do. I wasn't sure how long it would take, even though we did practice, but I'm going to run through some of this is about the skills we teach, because our most requested article on our website for copying and sharing is called Face Bullying with Confidence, 8 Kidpower Skills We Can Use Right Away. And so practicing those 8 skills for yourself and for the people in your life it makes a difference. So we want to be acting, aware, calm, respectful, and confident. And the way to practice is right now, just close your body down like Caleb was there. And now Caleb has a visual impairment, but when we work with people who can't see, we have found that even if they turn their heads to look, even if they can't see, it sends a message to somebody who might be trying to sneak up on them or bother them, which is, I know you're there. I notice you. And so, straightening up your body, going from this to this, can not only change how you look, but also change how you feel inside. And you want to use your awareness not only to look aware, but you also want to notice what you're seeing so that you can move away from trouble instead of staying close to trouble. So often when somebody's, you see a couple of some young people maybe, and they're whispering to each other and pointing at you or sneering at you or making faces, or if you go towards that group, you're moving towards trouble. So you can make a plan. Maybe you're going to, go find another person to talk to, or go get a drink of water if you're not sure what to do, if you're out on the schoolyard, but to move away from trouble. We teach walk away power, which is these safety signals are these are our legs, and you walk away on your arm, or roll away power, which is for wheels, cars, skateboards, bikes, and wheelchairs if you use a wheelchair, to move away from trouble. Setting boundaries and speaking up and having the words to say. So here's this is a relational aggression where Emma said, she doesn't like you. And instead of saying, oh, tell me what she said, tell me more, Rose is saying, why are you telling me this? I'm not going to believe you unless she tells me herself. In other words, Rose is setting a boundary. And she might reach out to the other person and say, I heard this. One of the things, and this kind of bullying doesn't just happen about appearances, and it doesn't just happen with kids. Often in social organizations, people do be mean to each other. We have an article called Integrity in Communication, which is about all the excuses people give for talking behind each other's backs instead of speaking up directly. And our goal is, if you're going to have a culture of caring and respect and safety and kindness for everyone, you need to start with yourselves. If we're setting a bad example as adults, then how can we expect our kids to do better than we are? You can also speak up about cyberbullying. Sometimes people get caught up in what seems like fun to them, a joke in the moment, and it can be incredibly hurtful to somebody else. Sometimes they do it deliberately, but often not. And texting is so immediate. One of the things that we're helping young people to understand is that things happen so fast. It's way efficient, right? And it has bigger consequences, and it spreads so widely that if you send out a photo that makes somebody look ridiculous, it doesn't just hurt. It can be incredibly hurtful, and it might be funny to you, but being mean is being mean, whether it's done with electrons or words or other behavior. And we do have an article about protecting young people from cyberbullying. Again, we will share that with you. And I hope I'm sure somebody's writing down all I'm promising to share. Practicing using your voice. Now, I'm not going to yell on the computer, but if you practice yelling, stop, help, leave. That instead of just watching or filming, getting help. Now Mikey is in the distance there. He's the yard duty, and he needs it. He can't watch everything all at once, especially if there's lots of kids on the schoolyard and just one person. Being able to yell, and being able to yell calls attention to yourself. And one person, there was one of our instructors saw somebody about to hurt somebody else, and he yelled, "Stop! The police are coming!" And all the attackers ran away, and the person that was being threatened was safe instead of potentially very, very badly hurt. You want to protect your feelings by throwing away hurting words. Here, Talib was called a retard and a freak, and so they're throwing those words away, using all sorts of different trash cans, and reaching out to somebody again, having the words to say for positive inclusion. Now, we don't believe that inclusion should be automatic, that every single person, sometimes people's behavior is so hurtful and they're putting other people down, that it doesn't work to include them. So finding a way to set boundaries with them, and so we say, you can say yes with a boundary. You could say, yes, you can play, but no shoving, for example. And if a person doesn't respect that boundary, you can not include them until they do. But in this case, when somebody's feeling alone, reaching out to them is another form of positive inclusion. We haven't talked a lot about being really persistent in getting help, but getting help from people, the person in charge. With kids, it's an adult. With adults, it might be the manager of a restaurant if somebody's being awful to you, or it might be your supervisor, it might be your personnel department. But whoever it is, being persistent in getting help. And again, helping people to deal with the negative reactions that often come up. In this case, the teacher's busy and she says, "Solve it yourself, I'm busy." And so the girl is persisting and saying, "We can't solve it, we need your help." So giving young people and ourselves the words to say, not just to set boundaries, but also to advocate for ourselves to get the help we need, because we all need and deserve help. And finally, we have our One Strong Move book. Is a cartoon illustrated self-defense book, but being able to use your body to get away from somebody who's about to hurt you. We're the only species of our, well, that's not true, but we have the right to defend ourselves, and physical self-defense has a place. Some kinds of physical self-defense are leaving. That's better because you're not fighting. Being able to fight to protect yourself is a right. If somebody who's learning it can do it, can use it at a time that is appropriate, when you are about to be hurt and you can't leave or get help. We want kids to know, and this is, we make this promise not just to kids, but to each other, because the protection promise is to reach out to the people who are important to you, because so often people are busy. And so the promise is this, and I'm going to make it to all of you right now, and I want you to share that promise, and that is, you are very important to me. And if you have a safety problem, I want to know, even if I seem too busy, even if somebody we care about will be upset, even if it is embarrassing, even if you promise not to tell, and even if you make a mistake, please tell me and I will do everything in my power to help you. Now, there's a lot of you in the wide world, and often what is in my power is to answer your email on safety@kidpower.org and tell you how to get help or how to help yourself. But this is our commitment as an organization. We want to know when people have safety problems, and we'll do our best to help within the resources we have. We have lots of resources on our website. If you go to kidpower.org/bullying or /training. So got that. And I want to thank you all for being here. I think our time is up. And so, yes.
2 questions if you want to go
over. Okay, I'm willing to go over and I will answer those questions, but, and again, this is being recorded. So what are the questions, Iman? Okay, he wants me to read them. Okay. If there is, okay, I think that this is about TMAU, which is a metabolic disorder where the symptom is a strong body odor and there is no treatment for it. And as a result, most people experience bullying in the workplace. I can imagine that. Okay, so part of the strategy when you have something, and this sometimes happens with kids who, because of their family situations, sometimes come to school with strong body odor, but this is something that can be helped, structurally. If it can't be, what you want to do is tell people that you have a problem so they don't make a mistake and think it's because you don't care or lack of hygiene. And rehearse the words to say. This is to make it emotionally safe to say, I have a medical condition. It's a metabolic disorder that causes my body to have a strong odor. I'm really sorry if it bothers you. But I want you to know I'm doing my best to reduce the impact on people, and then be prepared. Some people might say something like, well, you shouldn't be working here then. And you say, this is where you tell yourself, I am proud of who I am. I have a lot to contribute, even though, I think I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just put me on there. Well, let Iman do that while I'm talking to you. You can just get me up there without the, yes, there, hello. So that you rehearse, because it takes courage to tell people, but not telling people is like when our instructor was worried that people would think she was grimacing because her body couldn't smile in a way that people were used to seeing. And so that would be my recommendation, but I would be prepared to weather the storm. Write down all the things you're worried about. If you can't think of answers, write to us at safety@kidpower.org and we'll help you come up with some. We're really good at it. And practice, so that just like if you're practicing courage, so that you can speak up, you can tell the people around you what the problem is. It's amazing how people get used to anything. People get used to smells. And some people are more highly sensitive, and they're often sensitive if they think they're making a mistake. They think a person didn't care, he wasn't washing, wasn't washing themselves, which of course wasn't true. But we have issues with perfume because many of us are allergic or sensitive, and yet sometimes people don't know they're wearing perfume. And so we need to tell them, but that's a different kind of problem. So speaking up and communicating, what I'm trying to say is that people are bothered by different things, and just a human body odor, people aren't allergic to. It's not like an artificial one, even if it's strong, and people can get used to it. So finding ways and finding people who are more welcoming to work with is a way to address it. And having the people in charge say, one of the initiatives we participate in is called Day One, #Day1, and it's about the people in positions of leadership in an organization, a workplace, a school, saying that everyone will be treated with respect and no bullying will be tolerated. So including that as part of your organization or your workplace's commitment to safety. And if they don't have that, realize that most people have something where they're vulnerable. And that creating a safe environment for everyone can be something that you're being courageous can cause to happen. Stares from people. Yes, we train people to not stare and to speak up and ask, but that's when you're not out in public. So when you're out in public, it's harder. And I'll just say that. If it's with somebody, if you're in a school or a classroom and people get stared at, we've got, people stare because somebody looks different, or they stare because somebody looks, unusually, pretty in the standard sense of pretty. And so being able to say, I know I look differently to you, and please don't stare at me or don't stare at my kid, is something you could try in a situation where it feels safe to do that. If you're in public, then again, if you're in a restaurant, for example, and people at the next table are making you uncomfortable by staring, sometimes the thing to do is to say, is to go over to the table. If you don't think they're belligerent, if you think they're just trying to understand or surprised, you can say, I understand you mean no harm. And we are, gosh, I don't know what happened here, but I'll let you fix that for me. I know you mean no harm. And even so, it is very uncomfortable. We're enjoying having dinner here with our family. And yes, we have some ways that we look different to you. And please just, and you know, a lot of times people, when you point out their behavior, they're sorry. They might, most of the time people are, oh my gosh. And you know what? It's okay to make them point out when they're doing something that's hurtful, because how are we going to change? You can say, if you don't understand, I'd be glad, and you can might write up little cards and practice with that if you don't want to actually talk to them. It used to be my job when we go camping, and my parents would be upset because the RV next to us, we were in a little tents, and the RV next to us had their generator on long past hours. It was always my job to go and tell the people in the RV to please turn off their generator. And I never had anybody do anything but be sorry that they had been doing that. I think people know that they're being hurtful, but having it pointed out to them. Now, if it's not safe, then your job is to leave and to protect yourself, to try to take the power out of staring. You could make games out of being stared at and imagine your emotional screen or your raincoat. And as you walk through the world, it's imagining something to protect yourself because we don't know what's behind somebody's stare. So there's some options for you. I'd be glad to talk to you about other choices, or we can certainly by email do this. I want to thank you again, Marta and Bea, for making this, inspiring and helping us to reach out to people with this webinar. I want to thank all of you who participated, and so we will be sending out in the next day or two an email to you with a link to this recording and some other links to resources that we've mentioned. And I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening, and we'll be signing off from Kidpower.